Hello everybody, my name is Casey Lee and welcome to SEG2900, the Web Technologies module. So SEG2900 is a bigger course and there's a lot of things in SEG2900 meant to prepare you for your first co-op term. You'll be doing things like resume reviews, interview preparation, things like that. And I am specifically in charge of the Web Technologies module. This is a couple of sessions that I helped create, and I've been lecturing over the last couple of years, all about helping you with your first job, and we'll get into more detail about that in a couple of slides. Now, one thing I should mention is that obviously this is the video version of SEG2900 Web Technologies module. So, obviously given what's going on around the world with COVID-19, we had to kind of do a video version of this. So hopefully this will work for you guys. This is the first time we've done it. We usually do this in person. So there'll be some things that will be slightly different obviously this year with the video version, but hopefully it works out for you guys. We have a lot great stuff planned in store for you guys today. So before we jump right into it, I want to mention this website here. So www.caseylee.com/UO. So think UO, University of Ottawa. If you go to that site, you'll actually find a lot of resources for this course. You'll find actually a copy of all these slides that we have here. You will find a course document, which is kind of a lot of what we teach in the slides, but more detailed version of that. You'll also find things like sample solutions on there. We tried to kind of make this part of the course very easy on you guys. This part of the course was really meant about kind of, getting your toes wet and kind of having fun and doing what we have set in store for you guys, and not stressing too much about the marks and not stressing too much about getting everything right. So hopefully if you go to this site, you'll see a lot there that will really help you out. So if you're really stressing out, go to the site and hopefully you'll find some of the answers that you're looking for. Not to mention, obviously, the professor of the course and the TAs of the course will really help you out. And obviously you can always get in contact with me as well. Okay, so let's jump into it. SEG2900 lecture number 1. So lecture number 1 actually has a couple parts to it. So the very first part here is the course overview. So we kind of call this a module 0. We'll talk about the course and what this is all about. So we can really dissect and give you an overview of what to expect in the coming weeks. Okay, so first of all, as I mentioned, I'm Casey Lee. So who am I? At the time of recording this video, I am the CEO and founder of BiteSite, hopefully for years to come after this as well. I've been running the company for about 8 years now, actually. I founded the company about 8 years ago, and I've been running it ever since. We have a small team, and it's been going really great. I'll talk a little bit more about myself after this. But just here's who I am, and most importantly, here's my contact information. So my work and personal email, casey.lee@bitesite.ca and gmail.com, and there's also my Twitter handle and BiteSite's Twitter handle. So if you want to get a hold of me, feel free to send me an email at any time. I always tell people that if they're ever hesitant about sending me an email, don't be. If you have a question, if you want clarification, you want any advice, any of these kind of things, just send me an email. The worst I'll ever tell you is I'm too busy right now, and the worst you'll ever get is I just don't respond just because I'm too busy. But I always try to respond as best I can. So don't hesitate to reach out to me if you want during this course and beyond this course. I've kept in touch with a lot of students and given advice where I can, and just love my relationship with the students and seeing them really like excel in this field. It's a great field where there's a lot of collaboration. So definitely happy to hear from you guys if you want to send me an email. Okay, so let's talk about this course. So this course actually came to me a couple years ago. So what happened in software engineering a couple years ago that wasn't always the case is that software engineering, they made co-op mandatory. And they made it mandatory after first year. So after 8 months of learning, you kind of jumped into a job right away. And that is not really a ton of time, especially if you're coming, from a place where you haven't done a ton of software engineering beforehand, right? Everyone comes from different walks of life, different schools, different experiences. And some people start software engineering with almost no software engineering experience. I did a couple of programming courses in high school, but really I wasn't super well versed when I actually started software engineering myself. And then 8 months you go through and you do learn a lot, but even in those 8 months, you're not doing fully software engineering stuff, right? You're doing a lot of different courses. So even after 8 months, you don't necessarily have, like all the skills in the world to get a job. And so SEG2900, as I mentioned, was kind of put in place to kind of help with that. And so when the course was brought to me, actually, they told me that there are a couple there's a couple of key skills that students were kind of lacking in terms of getting their first jobs. And so what we did is we designed this course to help you get you those skills. And some of those skills were very, very technical. We're talking some web development skills, some source control skills that you're going to get from this course. But we decided to make it a lot more than that. We decided that, we could sit here and just teach you HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Git. But maybe that's not a ton of fun. And two, there's so many more skills that we could give you guys. And there's so much, experience that we could give you in teaching you these skills. So we came up with the idea that we would frame the Web Technologies module of SEG2900. We would frame it around creating a startup company. So there are many walks in life when you want to become a software engineer. You could work for a big company, you can work for a small company, you can work for yourself, you can become the CEO of a company, you can found your own company, all this stuff, and you're going to get a lot of experience throughout school and through co-op and stuff. And so we wanted to give you a little taste of what it's like to start and run a startup company. And that's what this Web Technologies module is all about in SEG2900. A lot of people have a lot of fun with it, and we've seen a lot of very impressive groups and very impressive projects of this. And we're not saying that this is the way to be successful as a software engineer, by no means. We're just saying this is one way to do it, and we want to give you a taste of that. And that's what this course is all about, or at least, this section of the course is all about. It's all surrounding creating a startup company. Okay, so that's what it's all about. So the intent here when we designed this is that as you go through the Web Technologies module of SEG2900, is you're going to get three really important things in doing this. One, you're going to get real-world software engineering experience. Okay, so software engineering is a very big field, and it's not just about coding. It's not just about programming. Software engineering is so much more. Software engineering is about figuring out what people want. It's about figuring out how to work with others. It's about combining skills together and figuring out processes. It's about testing. It's about iterating. There's just so much involved in software engineering. And in going through this part of the course, you're going to get some real-world software engineering experience. So that at the end of this, you'll actually be able to talk about when you worked with a team, or when you created a startup company, or when you learned a certain language, these kind of things. So that's some of the real world experience you're going to be getting. The second thing is you're going to get real world startup experience. So startup experience, when you're creating a startup company, there's a lot of things to learn there as well. How do you work with other people to come up with an idea? How do you brainstorm ideas? How do you refine those ideas? How do you validate those ideas? How do you then take those ideas and turn them into something real? How do you sell those ideas to people who might want to invest? Or how do you sell those ideas to users that you might want to use your app or your website or whatever it may be? So there's a lot to do when you create a startup company. And again, going through this, you're going to get real world startup experience. And the third thing you're going to get is real world skills. So, you're going to get software engineering experience when it comes to coding, process management, these kind of things. Startup experience in terms of starting a company, building ideas, and then real world skills on top of that. You're going to learn things like how to present, how to communicate. You're going to, again, like I said, how to deal with other people and how to manage your team and all these kind of things. You're going to get all these skills in going through this course. So I hope you're excited, because you genuinely get all this experience that when you're finished this course, you actually you'll probably be surprised how much you've actually picked up just by going through this course and going through this experience. Okay, so we know the vague idea. The vague idea is that SEG2900 Web Technologies module surrounds the idea of creating a startup company. And we know some real world benefits that you guys are going to get. So how does this actually look? So what are you actually going to do in this course? So what you're going to do is broken up into 3 major pieces. So your high level task, okay? So if I were going to sit you guys down and say, this is what you're going to do, the 3 major things you're going to do are: 1, you're going to form a startup team, okay? Not exactly form it yourself, to be honest. Because of the mechanics of the course, we are actually going to form the teams for you. But even though we're going to put you in those teams, a team itself isn't just a group of people, right? So we're going to put the group of people together, but you're going to have to take it further than that. And you're going to form a startup team. And we'll talk about exactly what that means in the next part of the lecture. So you're going to form a startup team. Second thing you're going to do is you're going to come up with a product, okay? In your group, you guys are going to come up with an idea, come up with a product of something you want to build, something you want to sell, something that you think that will make the world better. Whatever it is, you guys are going to come up with a product. Maybe it's just a fun joke idea. Who knows, right? You're going to come up with a product. And then the third thing you're going to do is you're going to market that product and your team. And what I mean by that is you're going to really try to sell your idea. You may be selling your idea to potential investors. You may be selling your idea to people who you want to join your team. You may want to try to convince people, hey, I have this great idea. Would you want to come work with me on it? You may be selling your idea to potential users. Whatever it is, you're going to be selling and marketing that idea. Okay? So that's your high-level task. Form a startup team, come up with a product, and market that product. Okay? All right. So that's your high-level task. What are you ultimately producing? Okay, if that's what you're doing, what do you deliver to your TAs and your prof, to mark and evaluate, right? Ultimately, this is still a university course. There still is evaluation. So what are you actually delivering in doing all this? Okay, so at the end of the day, at the end of this course, what you're delivering is this. 1, you're going to be delivering a source-controlled hosted website, okay? A source-controlled hosted website that promotes your product and promotes your team, okay? So we'll get into what source control is all about. And all hosted means is a website that's sitting out there on the internet, okay? If you've never done web development before, you can code a website on your laptop, but if you want other people to see it, you have to host it somewhere. You have to put that code on a server out in the internet so people can see it. Right? So that's what hosted means. So when you're done this course, you'll actually have a website that you could share with your friends and family or anybody. Okay, if you've never done web development before, this will be your first website that you can share around with anybody. Okay, and it will be source controlled, which is a concept that we'll get into shortly if you don't know that. So that's your first deliverable, a source controlled hosted website that promotes your product and your team. Okay, the second thing that you guys are going to deliver is a pitch. Okay, you guys are going to pitch your idea. All right. Now, again, in the remote kind of setting that we're in this kind of video conferencing kind of way, and the video lectures, this hasn't been fully sorted out yet. We're going to figure out a way to do this, but ultimately you guys are going to be doing a pitch, okay? And if you guys don't know what a pitch is, you can kind of think of it as a presentation, okay? You're just going to be putting together a presentation with slides, and your team is going to present your idea to garner up interest, okay? To sell your product, okay? So those are the 2 main things that you guys are going to be doing in this. Now, we are going to be walking you step by step how to get through this, okay? So if this is something that seems too easy, okay, there are a lot of little pieces to this. And if this is something that seems too hard, don't worry. We're going to be guiding you step by step through this, okay? Okay, so this web technologies module and the overall project that you guys are doing, this whole startup project, is broken down into what was originally 5 modules. So you can see the slide there says it's broken down into 5 modules. Now, what happened over the past couple of years is we found that there were some key lessons that students would have really appreciated to have. So we actually added 2 more lectures or 2 more modules into this. So technically it's really 7 modules, but as you can see on the slide here, there's module 1 and then module 1.5, and then module 2 and 3, and then there's 3.5. So there's kind of these half lectures, and the only reason they're half is because we slotted them in the middle between the lectures. So it's really 7 modules if you can envision this. And this is what it looks like. So over the next, roughly, 7, 8, 10, I can't remember how many weeks we schedule it over. But roughly 8 to 12 weeks, somewhere around there. We're going to be going through these modules. So module number 1, which we'll cover today, is the team formation, project setup, and product definition. Okay, so it's all about forming your team, getting your project set up, and then coming up with your actual product definition. And we'll talk about that in the next little bit of today's lecture. Module 1.5, the second module, is all about Git. So if you guys don't know what Git is, you might have heard it floating around. You might have heard of GitHub, which is kind of related to Git. It's not exactly Git. Git and GitHub are 2 different things, but they are very closely related. Git is the source control system we're going to use. So you're going to learn a little bit of Git if you've never learned Git before. Module number 2 is all about web page design and HTML. So we're going to talk about design from a non-coding perspective. How do you come up with web design without thinking about the code yet? Just kind of coming up with the design using pen and paper or design programs, these kind of things. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about HTML and how to learn HTML. Module 3 is all about CSS. Okay, so CSS is a way to make web pages look very fancy. Okay. And module 3.5, we're going to do a brief lecture on JavaScript. So JavaScript is a language that's becoming very, very popular. It's a language that not only exists in the web, but is now also found its way onto desktop applications, mobile applications, these kind of things. So we're going to touch a little bit on JavaScript. It's by no means a full course. It's a very, very introductory level lecture on JavaScript. And then module 4 is all about pitch preparation. So I'm going to kind of give you guys some techniques and ways that you can put together a presentation. And this is something that, by the way, you can use beyond this course. If you learn some of these techniques, you can learn how to pitch and present in any course and any walk of life. Any job you have, anytime you want to give a presentation, you can use some of these techniques. And then module 5 is traditionally pitch day. So again, obviously with the world situation, we are all remote now and we'll have to figure out how to do that. But typically in the past, this would be the day where the 3 finalist teams, so we actually have a little bit of a pitch competition, and the 3 finalists move on to the finals, and that's normally what module 5 would be. So obviously in the fall of 2020, if you're watching this in fall of 2020, with the given situation, module 5, it might play out a little bit differently. We still have to figure that out. But basically between module 4 and module 5, it becomes a little bit of a pitch competition. If any of you guys have seen Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, it's very similar to that, but competition-wise. So you guys are all going to pitch your ideas and presentations, and we are going to pick the top 3 who move on to the finals. Now, one thing I should mention about the pitch competition is that the pitch competition it does not in any way affect your marks in terms of how you do. And sorry, shouldn't say it doesn't affect your marks, but in what order you rank. So if you go to the finals or you don't go to the finals, that doesn't improve your mark. If you do a good pitch, you're going to get good marks. Okay, so the top 3, it's not really about the marks. It's really actually about, again, 1, real world experience, and 2, like legitimately what it's like to pitch in front of real judges and people who are really questioning your ideas and validating your ideas, these kind of things. So if you're somebody who is not comfortable pitching or presenting, and you're worried about your marks, don't worry too much about that. We're going to coach you through it a little bit. But don't worry that, again, if you guys you don't come in the top 3, that you're going to lose marks for that, okay? And in fact, I kind of want to mention that about this course in general, that we kind of purposely designed the marks of this course, like how to get your marks in the web technologies piece, to be quite easy, actually. If you do some bare minimum self-learning and do some bare minimum, it's actually quite easy to get full marks in the SEG 2900 Web Technologies module. We didn't really want you to think about the marks. We actually wanted you to think about treating this as a real world experience. It's very rare that you get some dedicated time to get together with a bunch of people and create something awesome just from your heads, right? It's very rare you get that opportunity. And we really wanted you guys to, to not be stressed out and worried, and really just have a lot of fun with just creating a startup project. So just a small note about that don't stress out too much, and actually have a little bit of fun with this in creating these great ideas. So. Okay, as I kind of teased a little bit there, in the past, we actually have had guest judges come in for the finals. So we've had in the past, we've had CEOs and founders come in from real startup companies in Ottawa, come to judge the pitches. So, and they would ask, real questions about the startup idea, and they would give great feedback and ultimately pick the winner. So, again, with the current situation, we don't know how that's going to play out, but I'm gonna try as much as I can to get some guest judges this year as well, so that you guys do get that real world experience. And in fact, pitching over things like Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever we end up using, that's not too unlike real pitches. Sometimes you have to pitch remotely because your investors are across in a different country or something like that. So. Okay, so just a couple of notes on the course. So you guys know what the course is now, you know what the format is, and again, we're going to walk you through it. But I just want to say a couple notes about the general philosophy and mentality of the course. So when you guys are going through this course, I want to give a couple of pointers about how you want to approach this. Obviously, bring your enthusiasm, bring your own ideas, bring your own passion, bring your own philosophies. But here are just a couple of notes that I think will help everybody succeed in this, because we are really in this as a team. Okay, we're all first year software engineering students here, and we want to really kind of band together and help each other out. Okay, so here are a couple things that I want to mention as you're kind of going through this course. So one, experts. So I'm speaking to experts right now. So like I said, we come from all different walks of life, different high schools, different schools, whatever it may be, all around the world. We all have different levels of experience. And I experienced this when I went to undergrad, that I felt very, very low on the totem pole. There are a lot of people who had great C programming experience and coming from the greatest schools around Canada. I'm from Canada. And my school was great. Don't get me wrong. I love my high school, but I didn't have the programming experience that some of these other people had. So do know that there are definitely people in this class who are going to be experts in this stuff already. They're gonna know everything we're teaching already. They're going to be way beyond what we're teaching already. So those people in the class, I want to talk to you for a second. I want you guys to take this as an opportunity to teach and educate others. Okay. When it comes to software engineering, I gotta say, no matter what job you have, okay, teaching, educating, and communicating is such an important skill to succeed. And so, just because you're the smartest in the room or you know the most, that's not enough. And in fact, most of the time, if you are that person and you don't know how to communicate what you know inside your head, you're gonna have a tough time. So, if you are in that camp, use this as an opportunity to educate people who are not at that level. Okay, so if you end up in a team where you're the expert and somebody else doesn't know anything, use that as an opportunity to teach and educate and communicate, right? It's a very valuable skill to have, and it will really, really help you out in your career. So use this as an opportunity to do that. Okay, still talking to the experts in the room. I want to let the experts know that we in this course are going to teach some basic technologies: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, if you are well-versed in those languages and you're a well-versed web developer, I don't want this course to limit you, okay? I really think that if you understand that stuff, then you should feel free to incorporate other technologies. If you know server-side programming, if you know how to program in PHP or .NET or Ruby on Rails or Node.js or whatever, then you can feel free to use those technologies, okay? There are a couple things, though, to keep in mind there. So one, I definitely, I don't want you to feel limited and don't feel like you can't use those technologies. Definitely go ahead and use them. But two things I want to mention. One, do remember that you're working with a team, okay? And if the rest of the team doesn't understand that stuff, take a moment to think about how that may affect things, okay? And are you willing to help everybody out? Are you willing to teach other people those other technologies? Can you set it up in a way where you're working on that stuff and they can still work on other stuff? Take that into consideration, okay? The second thing I want to talk about here is frameworks. So a lot of people, when they get into this course, they ask me about frameworks. So they ask me about specifically CSS frameworks, actually. So they always talk about, can I use Twitter Bootstrap? Or can I use Materialize? Or can I use any of these kind of like things that design kind of websites for you or themes for you, okay? And the main thing I would say to that is I would actually encourage you not to use those. Now, I say the word encourage. I'm not prohibiting you from using them, but I would very much encourage you not to use those because you can, throw in a CSS framework and then, a button gets created, text gets created, whatever, and you're not really learning how to style a button or how to style a text field or how to do your own layouts or how to code your own CSS. And I'll tell you, I've worked in web for 12 years now, and the most success I've had is when I actually don't use a framework and I code it from scratch. I code my CSS from scratch and it works really well. Okay. Now, again, I have to be careful about what I say here. So if you are somebody, though, who really understands CSS and you really understands JavaScript and you can code this stuff from scratch and you understand it all, then yes, I mean, using those frameworks might make a lot of sense because you already understand that. But if you don't understand how you would actually create that button or create that text field or whatever, I would actually highly, highly encourage you not to use a framework and actually code it from scratch yourself. You will learn a ton. Okay. The third thing I want to say is, for everybody really in the class, is don't just do what you know. Okay, so you're joining a team and you're all going to build a website, and let's say you're really good at HTML, but you don't know CSS and JavaScript. Okay, or maybe you're really good at JavaScript, but you don't know CSS that well. You don't know how to design stuff really well. What I would really recommend is don't just stick to what you know. So if you're a JavaScript expert, don't just stick to JavaScript, okay? Take this as an opportunity to, again, expand your HTML wings or your CSS wings, okay? Take this as an opportunity to learn something new, right? Again, this yes, you want to impress, you want to execute well, but we're also giving you some time and opportunity to learn new technologies, right? And so I would recommend that you don't just stick to what you know right now, okay? Use this as an opportunity to learn some new stuff, okay? Okay, now let's talk to the beginners in the class. Okay, so like I said, when I went to undergrad, and I did go to undergrad at Ottawa U, I was actually, again, I considered myself, I considered myself pretty good in a lot of subjects, but I was actually kind of behind when it came to programming. So first of all, don't feel like you are behind. Okay, this course is designed that everybody's, again, it's coming from a lot of different places, a lot of different walks of life, okay? But one thing I want to warn you about, okay, is that a big part of this course is self-learning, okay? We are going to be not really teaching you HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We're going to give you some basic introduction about the concepts, and we are going to kind of talk about some high-level concepts and give you some brief examples. But really, it's up to you guys to go out and learn this stuff yourself. And we picked languages that we felt were actually some of the easier languages to learn yourself. Okay, HTML and CSS in particular are actually quite easy to start learning yourself. They take a long time to master, but they are quite easy to start picking up and learning yourself. JavaScript is a little bit harder, and that's why we give a little bit of a more full lecture on that. But there's still a lot of self-learning to be done. okay? And I warn you that you will feel lost at times, okay? You will get very frustrated at times. But kind of going back to this whole real world software engineering experience, that is the life you're in for, to be honest. Software engineering changes so fast. There are so many languages, so many new technologies, so many new frameworks, so many new ways to do things, and it changes very, very fast. And self-learning is a very, very big part of your life in software engineering, okay? So in this course, it's not like, say like calculus, where we teach you how to come up with a derivative and walk you through it and give you examples and then kind of assign it to you. It's not like that. Not to say that calculus is easy, but it's not in that format. This course very much depends on you going out to the internet and watching YouTube videos and reading online articles and reading tutorials and teaching a lot of stuff yourself, okay? You will get frustrated, yes, okay? I shouldn't say you will get frustrated. You might get frustrated, yes. But don't forget, you can always reach out to the TAs, to the professor, to your fellow teammates, to your fellow students, to myself, to give you a hand. But again, a big part of this course is self-learning. Okay. Next piece. This course is not just about coding. And in fact, it's not even like 50% coding. Coding is a big part of this, but there are a lot of other major players in this course, okay? It's about teamwork, process, business ideas, business validation, communication, presenting, all these other things, okay? It's not just about coding. And in fact, I will say there are a lot of software engineering jobs that are just coding, but there are a lot of software engineering jobs that are not just about coding, okay? And we're trying to give you that other experience other than coding, okay? So there's a lot more to this than just coding, okay? Yes, you will have to code, but if you're strong in other areas as well, you'll probably excel. You'll be given a chance to excel in those areas as well. Next piece. Okay, so we talked about kind of a little bit how you're going to go through this course as an expert or as a beginner and what you can expect. Let's talk a little bit about the product idea. Okay, so like I said, you guys are going to form a team and you're going to come up with a product idea. One thing I will say is that your idea does not have to be completely original. Okay? Your idea doesn't have to be so completely never heard of to succeed or to do this course, okay? I mean, if you think about so many of the apps out there, right? When Facebook Messenger came out, that wasn't exactly the most original idea. There were apps out there like Kick Messenger, Beluga. Well, Beluga got acquired and became Facebook Messenger, but like WhatsApp, text messaging for that matter. It wasn't exactly the most original idea, and now it's like one of the biggest platforms and one of the biggest apps out there, right? Twitter, when it came out, was quite original, but it was kind of playing on an idea that existed already. It's like, what if we took Facebook status updates and that's all our app was? Just status updates, right? 140 characters each, right? So your idea doesn't have to be so original that nobody's ever thought of it, okay? And it could even be an idea that already exists, but you can think of a better way of doing it, right? It's like Uber Eats, but it has this extra feature or whatever, right? Sometimes it's also about taking an idea that exists already, but applying it to a different industry, right? You can almost think of like, it's like Airbnb, but for cars, right? Like that's like Turo or whatever that company is called. It's like Airbnb, but for instruments or for renting instruments or something like that, right? Like you can apply those ideas. So the idea doesn't have to be that's completely original. I love hearing ideas that I've never would have ever thought of, but I also love ideas that are kind of modifications of things that exist already. Okay. Now the last point of this slide here is incredibly important, and in fact, I get asked about this all the time after I say it in the lecture, okay? So everybody wake up. You've been listening to me for a really long time. Please really pay attention to this point because it's very, very, very important, okay? I'm gonna wave my hand so people, like if they're scrubbing through, they stop and like think like, why is he waving his hands? Okay, very, very important here. Okay. you are coming up with the idea for this app, okay? Or product, I should say. You're coming up with the idea for this product with your team. But one thing that's very important in this course, okay, is that you are not actually building that idea, okay? Yes, you will be building a website to promote that idea, but you're not building the idea itself. What do I mean by that? Well, your idea could be a flying car, okay? But in this course, we're not going to ask you to build a flying car. We're only going to ask you to build a website to promote the flying car, okay? So your product, I keep saying app, your product could maybe not even be software related. Maybe your product is a certain type of chair, or maybe it's a way to accept payments or something, okay? Maybe it's it could be anything. It really could be anything, okay? The important thing here is you're not building the idea itself. You're only building a website to promote that idea. Now, I will say, because we're all software engineers here, and when we think about startups, we always think about tech startups, that I will say the majority of ideas that come through this course are tech startups, okay? They're usually apps, like mobile apps or web apps and stuff like that. And that's cool. I love that. I love that. But just know that you don't have to build it, so you can get really creative with this, okay? I mean, even if you are building a software idea, because you're not building it, you can get very creative with that too. You know, you may come up with an idea that we're going to use artificial intelligence to understand what type of ice cream people like, and we're going to build an app that suggests what type of ice cream people like, okay? Well, you don't actually have to build the artificial intelligence to figure that out. That's just your idea, right? And we're going to build the website to promote that idea, okay? So very important. You are not building the idea itself. You're just building a website to promote that idea. So with that in mind, feel free to get very creative. Like I said, when it came to the technologies that you use, I really want to emphasize as well that anything in this course, I really don't want you to I really don't want the course to limit you, okay? We are going to teach you a couple things, and we're going to have a couple deliverables of what we expect from you guys, okay? But don't let the course limit you. If you want to go further with your idea beyond this course, or even outside of this course, and you want to work more and you want to build something crazy, we 100% encourage it. And the best teams in this course have done that. There were teams in this course who have gone and gotten real customers. They came up with an idea and they got a real customer. There are teams in this course who have talked to real officials to get validation for their idea. I remember there's a team who came up with an airport, something to do with an airport, to guide you around the airport. And they actually went and talked to the Ottawa airport. They actually went and talked to some employees at the Ottawa airport about their idea. So there's the course only expects like a little bit, not a little bit, but the course expects some small deliverables from you guys, but don't let the course limit you. And in fact, the best projects in this course end up going beyond this course and actually become real startup ideas. Okay, so definitely don't limit yourself when it comes to this course. Okay, so that is the course. That is what you guys are in store for. There was a request at some point to understand who I am a bit more and what I'm doing here and why I'm teaching this. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself just to give this a little bit of context. So first of all, I'm the guest lecturer on this course. I'm not a professor. Like I said, I run my own company, and I have a tie with University of Ottawa in terms of I keep in touch with some of the student groups and the professors and the programs around here, and so I kind of volunteer my time where I can to kind of help out the school because it really invigorates me. It really does. Like teaching and helping out students and talking to students and learning from students really invigorates me. So that's why I'm actually doing this course. I'm actually guest lecturing this course. And just a small note on that, because I'm guest lecturing this course, I'm actually not the one in charge of your marks and stuff like that. So if you guys have any questions about that stuff, it's really, you really want to talk to the professor or the TAs about that. But I am guest lecturing this course. So like I said, my name is Casey Lee, CEO and founder of BiteSite. I'll tell you how I got to that in a second. Here's all my contact information. You can follow me on Twitter. You can email me. You can send me a message. Do whatever you want. I actually started undergrad here at Ottawa U. So back in 2001 is when I started at undergrad, and I took software engineering. Software engineering was my undergrad program. It was actually pretty early days of software engineering back then. We were one of, I think, like 3 universities who were officially accredited for software engineering, actually, I think at that time. So I started here and I did my undergrad at Ottawa U. And I went through the program and you know, had a good time. But what's interesting is at that time going through the program, I wasn't actually super passionate actually about software engineering. All my friends and classmates were doing way better than I was. Everybody was really, you know, excelling and you know, I was doing well enough in school, but I lacked the kind of, you know, outside school passion that a lot of people had for it. And in fact, I was actually more interested in filmmaking at the time. So, you know, creating movies basically. So after Ottawa U, I actually went to Vancouver Film School. Now I'm just realizing actually here, my slides are off. So let me back up for a second before I get into that. So while I was at Ottawa U, actually, so co-op for us started in second year, and my very first co-op job actually was with the federal government. So I'm sure a lot of people will consider jobs at the government. So I actually had my very first co-op there, and I was doing some .NET programming there. I did some C# programming there. That's actually my only .NET experience actually was doing there. So I was programming a desktop application that had to do with modeling deformation of pipelines. Actually, it's kind of interesting. So, and then after that, I actually did a co-op at a private company called North Star Utility Solutions. Actually, they're still around. They're part of a bigger company called Harris Computer Systems, and I did a co-op there. And there, I was actually doing a lot of Java programming. So I did some Java programming there. Now, those were my 2 co-op places that I went to. So I did 2 co-op terms at the government and then 2 co-op terms at North Star. And then as school's kind of coming to a winding down, all throughout this time, I actually was kind of passionate, like I said, about filmmaking, about making movies. So after undergrad, I actually went to film school after that. I actually went out to Vancouver and did a 1-year program in film school. So I learned how to make basically kind of like Hollywood style movies. So it was a crazy 12 months, learned a ton, had a lot of fun. But I actually decided to come back to Ottawa for software. I was 26 at the time, and I felt like I wasn't, you know, really going anywhere with film. I mean, I really enjoyed film itself, the craft. I loved editing. I loved shooting. I loved the process a lot, but it's a very tough industry. And I just feel like I wasn't really cut out for it. So I actually came back to Ottawa, and I actually took a full-time job back at North Star Utility Solutions. So in 2008, I started full-time North Star Utility Solutions, and that's actually where I started web development. I started doing some ASP.NET stuff there. Visual Basic, I mentioned that the government was the only place I actually had ASP experience. Actually, no, that's not true. North Star actually did some ASP experience as well. Visual Basic, actually, ASP. So I did a lot of stuff there and spent time there from 2008 to 2011. So I was doing a lot of web development there. After 2011, I actually started looking for a new job. And actually one of the big places I was applying to back then was Shopify. So if you guys haven't heard of Shopify, they're a huge company in Ottawa, doing really crazy, amazing things. And back then, they were, I think, about 50 people, maybe less than 50 people when I applied, actually. I didn't get the job at Shopify. I was heavily underqualified for what they were looking for. But the skills that I had acquired to try to get that job got picked up by another company called Teldeo. So they were looking for a person to do some Ruby on Rails development. So I spent a couple years at Teldio doing some Ruby on Rails development. And after Teldio, I actually formed my own company called BiteSite. So BiteSite is a software services company. So what a service company basically means is you're paying people by the hour to do labor for you, right? So a software services company, not to be confused with a software as a service company. Basically people pay us by the hour to code applications for them. So we build web applications and we build mobile applications. We have a tiny team. Right now we are 2 people. And in fact, when I started BiteSite, BiteSite was actually a split company. We were doing custom software, building mobile and web applications, and we were doing video production. So we were actually making corporate video for companies. That part of the business actually shut down in January, and so now we're focused just on custom software, doing web applications and mobile applications. So that's kind of my quick life story. If you don't want to ever hear the full thing, I'm always happy to chat about it. But that is kind of my experience and kind of where my expertise lies. Web applications really are my forte. That's where I really shine. But mobile applications is something new that I'm been getting into over the last year or so. Aside from my work experience, I also do have connections to the startup community. And that really came from 2 places. We used to work for a company called LSpark, who's kind of a big startup player in the Ottawa community. They have a program that helps startups, basically accelerate their growth. They're called an accelerator. So we used to work with them, and we get introduced to a lot of startups there, and we get introduced to the startup culture there. But also, we work out of a co-working space called My Byward Office, and there's a lot of startup activity around there as well. Ottawa is a relatively small town, so all the startup communities kind of get to know each other. So all these connections I have to the startup community have kind of helped me shape this course and helped me give the advice that I've been able to give. So that's basically my connection to the startup community and who I am. Okay, so that's who I am. A couple of things I want to remind you just before we end this section. So one is the course document. So like I said, if you go to caseylee.com/UO, you will find a course document. So that basically is a big document that has everything that I talk about in these slides, but kind of in a more detailed fashion. So if you ever need to go back and read up on something more detailed, definitely check out the course document. And there's also a sample solution there. So again, in the end, you're going to deliver designs, code, all this stuff. If you're curious about how it should look, check out the sample solution, and you'll see all the code there for what you're looking for. So we're not giving you the answer, but we're giving you what your answer should look like, basically. So coupled with the course lectures, obviously you guys have DGDs. Sorry, they're not always called DGDs. I can't remember. They're either DGDs or can't remember. They're either called tutorial sessions or DGDs. I can't remember the names. DGD kind of stands for like discussion group. I don't know what the extra D is for. But coupled with the course, there are these extra sessions that you guys need to attend. First of all, I believe they're mandatory, so you got to attend them anyways. But I really want to emphasize that these are really good dedicated time for you guys to work on the project. Okay, now when this course was in person, I would actually attend a lot of these DGDs and kind of, talk with groups and kind of mentor groups a little bit and kind of have great discussions. Again, with us not having in person, we might be able to schedule some kind of remote meetings or whatever. But basically, you guys should treat this as dedicated time to work on the project. You guys are first year students. Some of you are the first time away from home. You guys have a full course load. Among all these other things that happen with first year university, there's a lot to deal with. So sometimes it's very hard to get together with your group and actually do work. So you should really treat the DGDs as dedicated time to work on your projects, okay? Again, I think they're mandatory anyways, but I really encourage you to use that time so that you can really get a lot of work done on this, okay? The other thing I should mention is that the TAs will be there to guide you. Really use them as a good resource. Our TAs have been phenomenal resources in the past. I have no doubt they'll be phenomenal this year as well. Really use them as a resource because they're in charge of your marks. But 2, they really know a lot. Okay, so really leverage them for knowledge. Like I said, there's a lot of self-learning in this, so you really want to leverage them where you can. Like I said, www.caseylee.com/UO, you'll find all this stuff. And as always, my contact information is here. You can see it there. Like I said, I love to work with students on their projects and stuff like that. So if you guys want to coordinate sometimes even outside of class hours, send me an email. We can set up a meeting. I love tossing ideas around and brainstorming and developing ideas. So definitely, reach out to me if you want to talk to me outside of class hours. Get your group together and we can have some good conferences, good discussion meetings. Okay, last thing I want to mention. I mentioned that I'm the guest lecturer, okay? If I ever say anything that's in conflict with the professor or the TAs, the professor and the TAs are the authority on this class, okay? They're the ones who are in charge of your mark. They're the ones who are in charge of your academic standing and everything like that. So they are the authority. So if something I says is in conflict with them, okay, especially when it deals to the course logistics, they are the ones who are right. Okay, so if you ever have any questions about, if my assignment's late or I'm having trouble submitting an assignment or my mark don't make sense or whatever, talk to the TAs and the professor. They'll be able to answer your questions. Okay, that's it for the first part of the lecture. We'll see you guys in the next video.